Hey there, and welcome back to the Gut Health Dialogues. I have a question for you. Have you ever had a moment where you're like, wait a second, I've been doing all the things, tracking symptoms, avoiding foods, taking supplements, drinking the tea, burning the sage, and I'm still stuck? Yeah, same. For years, I thought I was being proactive. I was managing my symptoms all day long, like it was my full-time job. I had a mental spreadsheet of what foods were safe, tried a million different ways to time my magnesium with the utmost precision, and treated social plans like a high stakes negotiation. Can we eat after 6, but before 8:15, somewhere that serves chicken, rice, and absolutely nothing spicy? That was my life. But what I didn't realize back then is that I wasn't actually healing anything. I was just managing around the symptoms carefully, strategically, and honestly pretty miserably. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about the difference between managing your IBS and actually healing your gut, and how you can start shifting into a deeper level of repair. One that doesn't feel like balancing a tower of Jenga blocks, where one wrong move and everything falls apart. So, let's get into it. When you've got IBS, it makes sense that the first thing you focus on is symptom control. You're trying to function, go to work, maybe leave the house without planning every bathroom within a 5 mile radius. So you start managing, and managing feels productive at first. Maybe you start with food, you cut out obvious triggers, you stumble into FODMAPs and suddenly realize onions are in everything. Kind of like when you start shopping for a new car or a specific dog breed, and now you see it everywhere you go. So you download a tracker app, you try elimination diets, you do that thing where you eat the exact same safe meal 5 days in a row just because it didn't make you miserable once. Then maybe you add in supplements, peppermint oil, digestive enzymes, fiber, magnesium, a probiotic you read about online. Another one that came in a prettier bottle seemed to have more good sounding things in it. You start taking 3 things before meals and 5 things after. You're not totally sure which ones are helping, but you're also afraid to stop any of them just in case. You start to think about planning, maybe trying to map out your meals or make a grocery list, but most of the time you're just trying to get through the day without triggering something. You don't eat enough because you're not sure what's safe. You skip meals, avoid snacks, and talk yourself out of eating unless you're home and near the bathroom. You double check restaurant menus ahead of time, hoping there's at least one thing you can tolerate. And more often than not, you just don't go because it feels easier to stay home than to deal with the anxiety of symptoms showing up in public. And if you do go, it's stressful. You're bracing for symptoms, quietly mapping out your exit plan, hoping whatever you ate earlier doesn't backfire mid conversation. This becomes your routine. Every decision, every plan, every bite revolves around trying not to trigger symptoms. You're managing constantly, but you're not actually healing. And here's the thing, these strategies aren't wrong. In fact, a lot of them are really smart ways to stabilize your symptoms in the short term. There's nothing wrong with needing to calm inflammation or avoid a flare while you get your footing. But at some point, symptom management becomes its own hamster wheel. You're constantly adjusting, retracking, troubleshooting, chasing a moving target, but never really getting ahead. You're just holding everything in place. And the moment one thing shifts, a new food, a trip, a stressful week, the whole thing falls apart. So, my question for you is this: are you actually getting closer to food freedom, or are you just getting better at avoiding symptoms? There's a big difference between building a gut that's more tolerant, flexible, and resilient, and building a life that just carefully avoids anything that might upset you. And I say that with zero judgment because I've been there. For a long time, I thought managing well was healing. But it's not the same thing. And the longer you stay in that loop, the harder it becomes to believe you can ever get out of it. So let's talk about what it looks like when you're stuck in that loop and how to know if that's where you are. So let's talk about some signs that you're stuck in management mode. How do you know if you're in the management loop? What does it actually look like day to day? For a lot of people, it looks like still eating the same five safe foods over and over. Not because you love them, in fact, they can be very bland, but because they've never caused a disaster. You might be afraid to branch out, even when you're bored or hungry or craving something else, because trying new foods feels risky, not just physically, but also emotionally. You might find yourself needing supplements just to get through a meal, digestive enzymes, binders, activated charcoal, maybe bitters, like you're building a little shield around your gut every time you eat. And if you forget them, you panic. Like, what if this meal doesn't go well because I didn't do all the things? Every new situation, a vacation, a restaurant, a dinner invite feels like a test, like the symptoms are just waiting to catch you off guard. You're not just managing your gut, you're managing your life around your gut, and that gets heavy. Symptoms flare anytime you try something new, so eventually you just stop trying. You get used to saying no. You build your life around what's predictable. It's not just about food, it's about control. And still, you're Googling, you're still up at night looking for the next solution, the right supplement stack, the right order to take things, the next protocol, the newest gut healing tea. Even when you're burned out, part of your brain is still scanning for answers. And the hardest part of all of this, it starts to erode your trust in your body, in your choices, and in the idea that things could actually get better. You start to wonder, is this just how it's going to be? Am I always going to have to think this hard about food? Is my gut just too broken to fix? And I want you to know if any of this sounds familiar, you are absolutely not alone. But this is exactly the point where something needs to shift because managing symptoms is not the same as building a gut that can handle life. And real healing is possible. In the next section, we're going to walk through what that actually looks like, the markers of repair, and how to start moving in that direction. So let's talk about what healing actually looks like. Not managing, not guessing, not stacking supplements like sandbags, but real functional foundational repair. Healing your gut doesn't mean flipping a switch and waking up symptom free. It's not a perfect linear process, but there are very real signs that your gut is starting to work better, not just quieter. And when those signs start showing up, they can be subtle, but they're powerful. Healing means improved function, not just fewer symptoms. Here's the thing, fewer symptoms can be a sign of healing, but not always, because there's a difference between calming things down while your gut repairs and patching things up just enough to get through the day. You can take magnesium and get a bowel movement. You can pop a digestive enzyme and eat a heavier meal. You can avoid FODMAPs and feel less bloated. And those are amazingly useful tools, but they don't mean your gut is functioning better. Motility improves because your gut brain connection is working again. The vagus nerve is actually sending the right signals about how and when your gut should move. That signaling might have been blocked for a long time, either by chronic stress or by nerve pathways that were trained into an anxious, reactive state. When that system calms down, things can flow again, literally. You're digesting food without needing enzymes because your body's producing its own. When your nervous system is more regulated, your body isn't stuck in fight or flight. So you're actually able to access rest and digest mode. And in some cases, like we often see with SIBO, let's say you have an enzyme deficiency due to inflammation from bacterial overgrowth, that inflammation can start to calm down too. And once that pressure is off the pancreas, it can go back to doing its job properly. That's the kind of healing that doesn't come from adding more supplements. It comes from restoring function. You're not as reactive to foods because your immune system isn't constantly on high alert. Once the gut barrier is stronger and the inflammation cools off, your immune system stops treating every new food like a threat. You stop reacting because the internal environment is different, not because you've memorized the perfect food list. That's function, and that's what we're rebuilding. It's the difference between propping your gut up with workarounds and building a system that can actually handle life. And sometimes when you're healing, symptoms don't disappear overnight, but the overall trend starts shifting. You might have fewer tools in play and you're still feeling better. You might test a new food and not have a flare. You might miss a supplement and feel fine. That's function, and that's what we're after. Don't settle for just holding it all together with shaky hands, for cobbling together routines and rituals that keep you barely afloat. That's not where your story ends. A lot of people think they have to stay in that place because they've been managing for so long, they don't realize there's another option. But I promise you, there is. Healing looks like more food, not less. One of the biggest mindset shifts here is that real healing is about adding back in, not constantly eliminating. That doesn't mean you dive into pizza and onion rings on day one, but it does mean your list of safe foods gradually grows. Foods that used to be scary, garlic, broccoli, lentils, maybe even that one specific brand of granola that betrayed you, start becoming less reactive. You test them gently, and sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't, but even then, your reaction isn't as dramatic. You start realizing that your gut isn't broken, it's just been sensitive, and sensitivity can change. This is where we shift away from restriction as a default. You stop assuming new equals dangerous. You stop thinking of your digestive system as fragile, and you start realizing that it can learn. Your digestive system becomes more flexible. Flexible digestion is what we're really after because life is unpredictable and your gut needs to be able to handle that. This looks like being able to eat out without mapping out every ingredient ahead of time. It means not panicking if dinner gets pushed back by an hour. It means not needing a specific combination of enzymes, probiotics, and a Tums chaser just to survive a meal. It's not about being able to eat anything anytime. It's about not needing everything to be perfectly controlled for your gut to stay calm. You might start to notice that you feel more normal after meals. Your stomach isn't talking back to you. You're not immediately bloated. You can eat something new and still go on with your day. And even when symptoms do show up, which they will sometimes, you're not completely thrown off because you know your baseline is more stable. Your body can handle a little disruption. Your gut isn't that house of cards anymore. One of my clients that I met with last week had been nervous about an upcoming trip to New York City, and with very good reason, because a few months ago, she couldn't eat anything without ending up with hours of gas and discomfort. There's no way she could have imagined walking around a city, eating freely, and actually enjoying herself. But in our work together, we calmed the inflammation, we rebalanced her gut, which in her case meant clearing her SIBO and got her tolerance back on track. And she went. When she got back, she told me she had pizza, a hot dog, cheesecake, and gelato and had zero gas. And they didn't just eat, they walked all over the city, did so many things, honestly, more than I could imagine doing when I go to New York with my husband. That is what I mean by flexible digestion. Not perfection, not eating recklessly, just a gut that can handle normal life again. You also stop organizing your entire life around your gut. And this one is huge. You stop building your schedule around bathrooms. You stop saying no to plans just because you're nervous about food. You stop eating less just to feel safer. You start building your meals around what your body needs, not just what it won't react to. And how about that, right? Remember when you used to eat based on what actually benefited you? Maybe you followed a higher protein routine to fuel your workouts. Maybe you ate more carbs because you were training for maybe like a running event, or focused on fiber because you knew it was good for your gut. Maybe you just liked eating a certain way because it made you feel strong or sharp or energized. And now You're just stringing together safe foods to make it through the day. Chicken and white rice, crackers, dry toast, maybe some zucchini if you're feeling wild. You're not eating to nourish anything. You're not fueling anything that brings you joy. You're just trying to stay out of the damn bathroom. And I get it. I've been there, but that is not the final version of your story. Because once things start to shift even a little, you begin to eat more consistently. You're not skipping meals or avoiding foods all day just to avoid symptoms. You're actually nourishing yourself like you used to. Your blood sugar is more stable, your energy picks up, your mood evens out. You're not running on cortisol and crackers anymore. Your body's not just surviving on stress hormones and snacks. And all of that creates momentum because when your nervous system is calmer, your digestion improves. When your digestion improves, you can eat more and better. And when you eat more, you actually fuel repair. It becomes a feedback loop in the right direction. You trust your body more. This might be the biggest shift of all. When you're stuck in management mode, your body feels unpredictable. You start to feel like you can't trust it, like it might betray you at any moment if you make the wrong move. So you shrink your life down to stay safe. But when you start healing, you stop being scared of your own body. You stop living in defense mode. You stop Googling every symptom. You stop reading about what happened to someone else on Reddit and assuming it's your fate too. You realize your body is trying. You start working with it instead of around it. You understand your patterns. You learn how to support your gut instead of constantly tiptoeing around it. And that's a huge deal. You also focus on function, not just triggers. And this is where the real shift happens. When we focus only on removing triggers, we're just dodging symptoms. But when we focus on rebuilding functions, supporting motility, calming inflammation, feeding the right microbes, restoring gut brain signaling, that's when your gut becomes more resilient. You're not just trying to outsmart symptoms, you're actually making your system stronger. And I want you to know that is 100% possible. Even if you've been stuck in management mode for months or years, even if you've tried other things before, even if you feel like you've tried everything, it's not about trying harder. It's about finally working smarter with a clear plan, with support, and with the belief that your gut can change. And that's exactly what I'm going to walk you through in my upcoming masterclass on September 4th. It's called How to Heal Your Gut Before the Holidays Hit. We'll go over the same strategy we use with clients to move from symptom control into actual healing so you can feel better before the holiday chaos hits, not after. It's totally free and it's packed with practical tools you can start using right away. Just tap the link in the show notes to grab your spot. If this episode hit a nerve, if you're tired of walking the tightrope and want a gut that can actually keep up with your life, this is your invitation to finally shift gears. I'll see you there.